I'm Joe Navarro. I'm a body language expert, and today I'm going to be reviewing my own body language. So in May of 2019, I was looking at body language for Wired. Now we're going to be looking at my body language during that same time period.
Most of my career I spent within the National Security Division. A lot of it had to do with looking at specific targets, and then it was about, well, how do we get in their heads and how do we neutralize them?
So there were some questions about my interlaced hands during this initial video. And for me, that's just one of those comfort behaviors that I use to help myself. Obviously, I'm not in front of the camera all the time, so it does provide a little bit of psychological discomfort. So oftentimes, you'll see me with interlaced hands, and many people do that, and it's just that it's a comforting behavior. I find it very useful, and if you've ever wondered what to do when you're sitting in a meeting and don't know what to do with your hands, just interlace your fingers. It's better than having your hands flat or your hands disappear totally from the table.
We may think we're very sophisticated, but in fact, we are never in a state where we're not transmitting information.
Oh, wait, go back, because I did something really weird. My elbows came in and my hands went out. And I realized that when I'm uncomfortable, I do things that actually reflect that. Now, you've probably seen me grab my hands together multiple times. That's dealing with insecurity. But here at this moment, what you see is I bring my elbows close to the body and my hands come together here. And what I'm in essence doing is being less territorial. And as I evaluate myself, I'm saying to myself, okay, this is something you shouldn't do. Even if it was just momentary, that my gestures should be fluid, they should be out here, that by self-restraining myself, I'm actually taking away from the message. And this is one of the advantages of watching a video, is that you can see yourself make this mistake and say, you know what, I'm gonna be careful next time to make sure that I don't do it, even if it's just momentarily.
In my 25 years in the FBI, it was a rarity that a person didn't eventually reveal what I needed to know.
So as I'm looking at the video and I'm having a good conversation with myself, and I realize how often my leg shakes. And this is a comment that has been made, I've been made aware of several times. And I tend to bounce my leg or my foot tends to shake. And I do that subconsciously. I think it helps me to relax. I think it helps me to deal with stress. I've done it all my life. Why are we seeing it here? A person that lives in Florida, he all of a sudden is now in New York City in a strange environment, surrounded by at least 10 or 15 people that I've never met before, and that creates anxiety. And how do we deal with anxiety? We deal with them through the use of pacifiers, the hand touching, the hand wringing, the shaking legs, all contribute to that process. If it stands out and people can notice it, it can be very distracting. So it's one of those things that I'm going to be paying attention to from now on. So I just noticed one other small behavior, and it's a small gesture, and that is that I'm pulling down on my jacket. This is called a preening behavior. And we do that for a couple of reasons. You know, some people do it because they want to fix themselves right, they want to look right. I remember as an FBI agent, we always preened ourselves, fixed our jackets and our ties before the jury came into the room. I think I was doing the same here because I was very conscious of how my suit was looking in front of the camera, because they kept saying, make sure you pull down so the back of your suit doesn't scrunch upwards. The other reason that we sometimes preen ourselves is because we are physically touching our bodies. And in doing so, the texture of the material, the coldness of the material, in this case here, also helps to soothe us. In the same way that a small child will hang on to a blanket or a teddy bear or something. That touch helps to calm us. We never really outgrow that. Even as adults, we will always be touching things to help us to calm down. And in my case, obviously to me, I can well see that there was a high degree of nervousness there. And that's how I was dealing with it. You as an audience, and even me right now, as I'm watching this, I realize I have forgotten all this activity that's going on, and I have to be mindful of what I'm gonna say, how I say it, and what's next. Oftentimes, we look at a video, we see an interview, and we forget how many dozens of people were behind that camera, and that everything that is behind the camera and everything that happened that day prior to that camera turning on affects that person in a moment in time. The best that we can do is appreciate what's said, how it's said, and then maybe we can dig a little deeper. But we shouldn't come to too many conclusions just based on a video. And what an eye-opener for me as I'm watching myself here, and I realize that there were 3 cameras and 15 people at that moment looking at me, and how intimidated I actually felt. I'm a high-end introvert, so watching myself being in front of a group is very, very difficult. But I think it's something that we can now, with iPhones and other smartphones, it's easy to do, to watch ourselves, even if it's just for a few minutes, and say, boy, how can I improve on that? And so I think it's a useful tool.